fine. Okay, so now we're recording, just so all you know. Okay, so we're going to start with managing student communication and feedback expectations, because you want to set the framework. And then we'll go over some tips for providing feedback to discussion forums. That's a big emphasis. And we'll go over the different kinds, like individual, frequency of feedback. We'll talk about style and tone and how to give forum-wide feedback. That's that consolidation piece. And we'll talk about rubrics. And then we'll make sure that, as you probably will think, new ideas will come up, and we'll make sure to cover other types of feedback as well.
Great.
Okay. So one thing, especially as you're designing a class, but also as we're like getting, so the phase we're in is probably phase 2 of a remote emergency teaching, which is we made the transplant, but we're not, but we're refining now. We got over to the other side, but now we're like feathering our nest. And so it is appropriate to re-communicate with students if you have to about how things are going to go. You just want to make sure it's billed as benefiting them and that it honestly does benefit them if you do any changes. So you can use syllabus statements or syllabus updates to talk about how communication is happening in this new world. And one thing that I've found, like that my child's elementary school is doing that didn't really work, is they made one original Google Calendar, like calendar document that had all the links in it. And then we had problems with some of the links, and we were getting like 3 to 5 emails from different teachers with the new Zoom links, and nobody had updated the primary calendar. And so like, we didn't go to Spanish, we didn't go to PE, like my kid was missing everything because I'm like, I can't read all these emails, I got a life to run. So you don't want to turn your students into me, like into the receiver of this kind of, wait, which email was it for today? I mean, even we had 2 Zoom links for my pub trivia the other night, right? And I went to the wrong one. And so it's really good to have a central place. And so you want to tell your students that, you know, hey, I've opened up Blackboard Calendar and you can always find everything there. Or this Google Doc will be constantly updated. And even if you don't know which email to read, the Zoom for that night and the day something is due is going to be on this one Google Doc. It'll always be there. So you want to communicate collectively to students. You want to use Blackboard Announcements, which have the option to email. But you also want to make sure that they're not having to sift through emails and remembering the correct subject line to find the due date for this assignment or your special new office hours. So consolidate. The other thing that you want to do is remember that students can help. Maybe there's somebody who is like really good at updating their Google Calendar every time they get an email, right? And so you want to create a space for students to support one another. So if you don't already have something like a water cooler, a cafe, or a Q&A, FAQ place in your online course, you want to create one. And then when a student goes, oh my God, what's the Zoom? I need it in 10 minutes. Somebody else can answer them, even if you're busy getting your slides together.
Jessica, do you mean like doing a separate content area in Blackboard for that?
What do you think, Monica?
So there's actually, I was just going to say, in the template for all Blackboard classes, inside of your discussion board, there's something called the Student Open Discussion Forum, and it's actually, it's a default. So every time you get a new course, you'll see that kind of in there, and it has the netiquette directly linked to it. So kind of like setting the stage for how we want to communicate. And also it gives you a place to then add the description that says, please utilize this space to answer each other's questions. So it's actually already in the discussion board if you just want to go in and edit.
What's it called again?
The Student Open Discussion Board, I believe is what it's called. And it's inside of the discussion board tab in your template.
And some faculty like to give it new names, like Q&A cafe, or, you know, coffee shop, or hallway, or, you know, whatever, lobby, whatever feels warm. You can even have your students, if you want to get them involved in the class, you can even have your students come up with and vote on names.
Okay, thanks.
And I added one just to mine that was like FAQs. And so I posted a few questions that I thought might happen. And then they went in and they were really great about saying, this is the question and I found the answer here. And so they kind of created their own FAQs for the entire class. And so I thought that was really interesting too. That's just another option.
And you did it as a discussion board? Because that can also be a link to a Google Doc.
Yes, exactly, Jessica. And that could be even more helpful, I think, if you had a Google Doc to be able to work on, because then I've got one artifact that I can move to a different class, right? I don't have to have all these different posts.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then the syllabus statements, in case that wasn't clear, this is where you would say things like, I will respond to FAQs in the discussion board in 24 hours. Emails, you may have to wait up to 36 hours. You know, most one-page papers will be returned to you within a week. Anything of 5 pages or more, please expect a 2-week lag, you know, things like that. And I wouldn't use the word lag, that's too negative, but you want to frame the parameters so they're not in a state of confusion and worry. And you also want to make sure that you're like, if you have scaffolded assignments and you can't do an outline until you've turned in a topic statement, you have to make darn sure that your topic statement feedback is back to them in time for them to use it to create the outline, right? So that means planning your own calendar with that in mind. That's really helpful, because at least if we have it on our calendar, if then there's COVID-19 and something happens, we know we have to move things around on our calendar, and we're not suddenly remembering, oh my God, if I don't get that back to them, they can't do the next phase, and now I have to change the deadline for that. Now,
Jessica,
now that
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you able to forward these slides to us after this?
yes.
Perfect, thanks.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, you were with us on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Did you get those slides?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Just making sure.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
So I won't try to write everything down while you're talking.
No, you shouldn't have to. Okay, so then you're trying to, so then the goal is you want to manage student expectations and also meet student needs. And so the gold standard is always prompt, early, and frequent feedback. And I think we've kind of talked about that part. The only bullet we didn't talk about here is what to do with feedback and why feedback matters. Because if you're going to be putting on all this effort, you want to communicate to students what feedback means and how you use it. And especially if you're looking for sort of organic development of skills over time, you want to make clear that your feedback and their response is part of it, that you're not just grading them, right? That you're measuring skill and helping them improve skill, not just commenting on their performance, right? Because that's the best of assessment. Okay. And then one thing that'll help both you and the students is all semester long, is to consider low stakes assessment that provide feedback on learning. And so what you can do is, if you are providing feedback on their learning and providing opportunities for them to tell you, hey, I actually didn't learn that well, I don't understand it, is you might be making the grading at the bigger assessments easier on both of you. Okay, so keep that in mind, and we'll come up with we'll be talking later and about what some low stakes assessments might be that would provide students feedback on their learning and provide you feedback on their learning. And the example on the slide is a muddiest point question. And you can just, if they have access to, don't forget to give them access to it. You can link a Google Doc to them, and they can fill it out where you say, okay, before we go, I want to hear what was least clear to you today from today's lecture. And then they go to the Google Doc, and then you pick up there the next time, or you can send out a video lecture that answers their muddiest points before the next class. Okay. Now, feedback is going to be easier if your assignments are better. Do you guys want to see a little video?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see, I'm headphoned. Monica, do you think you can show it so that I don't have to switch where the sound is coming from on my computer?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's make sure it works for you, but I think I have to take out my headphones if I do that.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
That's not mine. There you go.
And then I'm going to optimize share computer sound, optimize for video clip. Okay, now we should be good. Okay, and then I'm going to full screen this for you all.
For them to produce a concept.
Oops, sorry, everyone.
Please note that we have provided a companion handout for this tutorial, and feel free to pause at any point during the tutorial to jot down notes that you feel are important to your learning. The goals of the tutorial are to provide tips for assignment creation and revision. We want to inspire you to develop clear and compelling assignments. In order to do so, we're going to review the following tutorial topics: the role of assignments, assignment purpose, assignment connections, scaffolding of assignments, and the very important assignment reflection. So, the role of assignments. For students, it's often a mystery as to why we assign what we do. They don't see the purpose or the role of the assignment in a course. For us, assignments provide the opportunity to assess and provide feedback on student learning. For students, assignments provide practice applying skills, content, and concepts learned. Take a minute and think about an assignment and ask yourself, why am I using this particular assignment? What is its role in the course? Assignment purpose. How do we make students aware of the purpose behind an assignment? Of course, we first have to be clear on the answers to questions about purpose ourselves. Assignments signal to students what matters most in a course. And if we share with them the purpose behind an assignment, we help them connect to why this matters. Some purposes for assignments may be to master content, to practice or build skills, to provide experiential learning, or to lead to better performance on another assignment or assessment. For a philosophy paper in a hospitality, recreation, and tourism course, students are asked to help formulate a personal and professional philosophy of leisure, and they're informed that this will serve as a guide for them throughout their career. Another element in engaging student assignments are clear connections. We explain to students how their work on this assignment helps them meet learning outcomes. We tell them which skills they're building in their assignment and how they apply to future assignments. We explain how the assignment is connected to graduation, future workplace contribution, and a deeper understanding of important issues. And we convey to them how the assignment helps them demonstrate their achievements. With clear connection to learning outcomes, knowledge and skills acquisition, performance, and professional relevance, all the pieces of the puzzle for students come together. Assignments are no longer a mystery and no longer seem to students to be busy work. Assignment scaffolding is another important element to engaging students and improving their attainment of student learning outcomes. Scaffolding promotes mastery and makes the steps in the learning and writing process more visible. It also breaks down the assignment into manageable chunks and provides the opportunity for early and frequent feedback. In the example you see here, we can see how a thesis statement provides a guiding gauge that allows students to produce a more targeted, annotated bibliography. With feedback on their abstracts in the bibliography, their thinking can advance far enough along for them to produce a conceptual outline. And then a conceptual outline will help provide a more organized early draft, and feedback on an early draft, whether from peers or the faculty member, will hopefully produce a more polished final essay. The last element we want to discuss in this tutorial is assignment reflection. Reflection is, of course, metacognition. When students reflect in writing on their assignment performance and process, they take responsibility for their learning and the responsibility to note and mark in their own minds what they have learned content-wise and what skills they will carry forward. They can also learn a lot about the processes they use to complete the assignment and take with them to the next course, perhaps ideas for better time management and responses to faculty feedback. So reflection prompts should ask students to think about their assignments and how they did them, name what they've learned, and plan their future study and performance behavior based on this self-assessment. A simple prompt that can be done in class as a brief write is to ask students, what did you learn during this assignment that you can apply later? As we conclude this tutorial, you might note down what elements from this presentation you could apply to an existing assignment and how you might incorporate these elements to your assignment. Thank you for your interest in crafting more engaging student assignments. For one-on-one support, feel free to be in touch with the Office of Faculty. As we conclude this tutorial.
Sorry. Okay, Jessica, I'll let you share again.
Okay. So thanks for your patience with that. Did you guys have any questions or comments about like conceiving the assignment as a part of the feedback development process?
No questions. I thought it was a great presentation.
Well,
Yeah, no, it made me think about, I mean, I think I clearly explained the assignments of why we're doing them, but I never thought about having them do a reflection, you know, how did that help, or what can you learn from that? It's an interesting thought.
it can really help. I mean, a lot of the emphasis on that was kind of at the end of the course, but I think it can really help for students who need to do a reset and think about how they're doing, you know, like figure out how to do college in your class. I think the reflection can really help with that. So it can be really part of not just success on an assignment, but their academic success long-term. Okay, so then back to the feedback piece and our piece in it. Once the assignment is unrolled, we want to have a sense of when we're giving formative feedback and when we're going to give summative feedback. And I think the way most of us came through academic life as graduates and graduate students and undergraduate students, almost all of our feedback, except in a very few classes, was summative, even though it might have formative implications, but it was always for the next class, right? So you turned in a research paper and then you found out how you did. If you were very pushy, you might end up in an office hour with a few notes and a draft, and you might get some feedback there. But most of us are good at giving summative and trained in summative feedback. And so what we want to think about a little bit today is how you can use formative feedback to impact student performance and reduce your load of summative feedback at the end of the assignment, at the end of the course. And it's important for yourself and to students to be clear about the different purposes of feedback. If they're only used to summative feedback and you give formative feedback, they're going to say to your comments on their rough draft, so what is this? Is this a B? Can I stop now? Right? And so that's why you want to be very, you want to start defining formative feedback and experientially demonstrating the benefit of formative feedback for you so that they can kind of understand the difference and how it might impact them as thinkers and students. So that means we also have to be clear during our class when we're assessing performance and when we're assessing learning outcomes, okay? And it's good to know the role of an assignment. And I will be honest with you, I probably implicitly understood a lot of this, but I wasn't explicit with this until long after I got into faculty development. But then I started reading the literature because I assigned book reviews. Well, is that a skill? Is that a learning outcome, or is that a performance when I grade a book review with a B+, And I had certain assignments that I wasn't taking apart the differences. And what kind of assignments typically measure learning outcomes attainment? And sometimes they're combined. And we can talk a little bit how both to distinguish and connect them. Offhand, Lori or Corey, when you think about some of your assignments, what do you think they're telling you and what do you think they're telling students? Is it about performance or learning outcomes?
Performance.
Well,
Sorry, it's
so,
okay.
well, for me, I think that it's both, and this is part of the challenge, is that, you know, I feel like I need to give a lot of feedback that isn't just about the performance of it, but is about moving them forward in their thinking. And, you know, so then it's like I have such high demands on myself for the kind and quality of feedback that I offer that it can be overwhelming. Part of this is, for many years, I used to teach writing. So I was involved with smaller groups of like seminars of 20 students where we would work intensively on writing over the course of a semester. And so, you know, I had a lot of work with helping students with the developmental process.
Okay. Well, you'll be thinking about that throughout our conversation today, and feel free to come back to it later. Okay. You want to talk for a bit, Monica?
Yeah. So this is something kind of, Corey, that you were speaking about is how do we provide feedback to students as a whole, right? Instead of giving every single student feedback, maybe we could do formative forum-wide feedback, right? So maybe you could provide a reflection and advice or guidance on what you're looking for from the discussion board, right? So this is really great at the beginning of the class, maybe, you know, first couple weeks. Instead of having to reply to everyone in the discussion board, maybe you just turn on Zoom and you share your screen and you pull up the discussion forum, and you can kind of go through as a whole, give some feedback, and just do a video post that kind of gives overall information to the entire class, right? About what you're looking for, and what maybe a little bit more of a reflective piece, right? What you really enjoyed, the topics maybe they missed, things like that, right? And kind of an overall feedback to the class, because it's a little bit more efficient to be able to use things like Snagit or Panopto or Zoom to just narrate your comments instead of having to type them all out or give individual feedback. It might be easier to kind of capture that in a video form, right? Being able to talk through it is a little bit quicker than, again, typing it all out for each student. And even, you know, if you do type it out, if you don't want to do a video, you could maybe just do one post for the entire week and say, this is what I've seen. These are the points that I really appreciated. This is what I want to see next week, or these are how we can connect it to next week, right? Do a little bit of the reflection for yourself as well. And then it's really great because you can put your video, if it's in Zoom, it'll go directly to Panopto, or if you use the Panopto tool, those two are automatically captioned. So then students who maybe just would rather read a transcript, right? They don't have to watch the video, they can just reuse the captions, or anyone with the accommodation would then also be helpful to them as well. And so just trying to think of ways to provide feedback that is a little bit more formative and forum-wide rather than individual for each individual student, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, because in a classroom setting, might read drafts of all their essays and say, well, generally as a group, this is where I think it's lacking, this is where your strong points are, without having to go through individually. So this is a way that I could do that online instead of trying to go through every single student on their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great, Corey. Jessica, did you have anything?
I think we connect this then to something you can do a little bit later on, because I think we talk about quizzing later. So that's something you can add to this when you also want to talk about the content mastery as well. Okay. And the nice thing about the video response is I always used to think, I hope that they will read correct, like they will receive correct content information. If it has to be corrected by video, it might be more impactful, because I'll always remember in one class close to the final, in a discussion board, one student said, you know, the best thing that ever happened in the late 20th century for women's rights was the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment. And then I went on and I was like, no, it never passed. And then I sent an email out to everybody, and I even made an announcement that it never passed. And I had like a half dozen to a dozen final exams that quoted that discussion board post that said, yep, the passage of the ERA. And of course they meant something different, right? They meant the movement and all that, but I just feel like if I had been able to post a video, I could have been very dramatic, and I might have made a bigger impact than a single student's discussion board comment that derailed a third of the class, right?
And with that, Jessica, I think video is so much more important because like in emails or text, so much can get lost in translation. You're thinking, why are you thinking this way or why are you doing that? But if you see somebody speaking their body language, you can pick up on it so much more. And maybe they're not saying what you thought they were saying.
Right. And also you can also kind of link to another video, right? So I could have gotten like, I don't know, Walter Cronkite announcing that it failed or something like that. And again, just by having it be multimedia, it's more effective. So just some thoughts there.
So when we're thinking about individual feedback, right, it's really important to try to share those expectations ahead of time with your students. So that's why, especially quality matters, right, it really drives home that rubric idea, right? Presenting those expectations ahead of time and sharing with the students, this is what I'm looking for, right? This is what I mean by organization. This is what I mean by including a thesis statement. And then another great tip is to include examples, right? Students' exemplars that are perfect, that you really thought students in the past did a great job, maybe offering students some examples to see what exactly it is you're looking for. I know that oftentimes that is not always the best way to go, right? It's because some students will take that and use it as an outline. But I think, again, just communicating with them and letting them know, I don't want this exact paper, but these are the things in the paper that really stood out, and this is what I'm looking for in an A paper, right? And then communicate those individual performance with the rubric scores, right? So if you're going to post a rubric and say, these are the levels of organization, this is the level of creativity that I'm looking for, try to use that with your grading, right? So that then they can see, okay, I got 4 points, which was, excellent in my creativity, but I could have used a little bit more guidance with the organization or things like that, right? And so they're able to actually see their performance inside of the rubric itself. You can discuss common strengths and weaknesses with the class, just like we talked about, maybe doing videos like this, midterm went great. This is what I saw. You guys all, picked up on the fact that the ERA was not passed, things like that, right? And so again, trying to use common strengths and weaknesses so that the entire class gets to learn from that, right? And this is where, again, the video lectures on the assignments, Jessica was talking about, you can even do a quiz, right? So you could put a quiz into your feedback video and make sure that the students really are getting the topics and the things that you want them to receive, right? It can be low stakes quiz that's just a point for whether or not they finished the video and really took away what you were looking for. You can keep personal files in Google Docs with stock responses. I have a Google Doc that is most common questions, right? And what I can send to students. So especially if they're having technical issues, if they're having issues trying to navigate the grade center, right? I can't see my comments, things like that. I have copy and pasted responses that I can give students that say, hey, try clearing your cache. Here's the links to that information. Or, hey, go ahead and click on this button, and then I have a little circle around the button that they need to click on to see the comments, right? So things that are just quick and easy for you to be able to give that individual feedback that might be something that is reoccurring in the class, right? An issue that comes up frequently. And then you can use voice to text, right? So if you want, you could just turn on your cell phone and begin speaking, and Suri has a pretty good, idea of what you're saying, right? If you use that in the car while you're driving to kind of text people, you can use that exact same way here, and you can upload your MP3, your audio files. So on a lot of cell phones, there's like a note feature or an app where you can take audio notes, and then we can put that directly in your Blackboard class, and Ally can really help to provide a transcript of what you said, things like that. So Ally is a Blackboard integrated tool that helps with course accessibility. And so if you see an A next to any of your documents that are linked, you can click on that and it provides you with a different type of file, right? So let's say I have a PDF, but I am going to take BART today and I want to listen to it on audio. I can take that 40-page PDF that's uploaded and download an MP3 file and listen to it being spoke to me. So just things like that. Ally is really great at giving translated versions, right? If somebody needs it in their native language, they can download that. So there's just a lot of options there when it comes to different ways to give feedback to students that, again, are going to kind of help mitigate the faculty, the strain on you all to try to reply to everyone in this week and then catch up by next week. So those are just kind of some helpful tips. Jessica, is there anything that I missed?
Yeah, like thinking about Lori and giving feedback and writing, that your personal Google Doc, where you cut and paste into student comments, it can have things like, what I mean when I say evidence without argument is that you have a list of events that occurred, but you haven't sandwiched it with a statement that provides direction to the reader about what you want them to conclude. And that's something you might type to a half dozen students in a class, but if you've already typed it once, you can copy it into other papers, other grade books.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just having that file of stock phrases and stock responses is good. And you can also use voice to text. I think Google, we know Google Slide has it. We can demo that for you if you want. And you should be able to get that into Google Docs as well. And then you could have a place where you could say your comments, edit them a little bit, and then stick them into Grade Center if you wanted to provide grades that way. And the reason we just bring up voice is often, this is why, the stereotype, if you guys used to watch Mad Men, is the dictation, right? The important person who's time challenged provides the dictation and the person with the time types. But now we have automated assistants, right? And so it may be that it would save you time if you were dictating your feedback rather than typing it.
Thank you.
Then we wanted to propose a little bit of a paradigm shift. And this came from Monica and I just kind of talking together about the problem of discussion boards. And one of the problems with the discussion boards is it feels like if you want students to improve week by week, right? It's a lot of feedback all quarter long for the faculty member. And if you're saying you have to write one thread and then respond to 2 other students' threads, and then you have to do, it's a lot to read. So we thought that you could also use student learning outcomes to assess forums, not just performance, because a lot of times we're focused on performance in discussion forums. Was this a good discussion post? Did it have a clear statement of the student's own point of view? Did it have citations in the proper format? Did it have a summary, paraphrase, or quotation from at least 3 readings as prescribed in the rubric? And that's a lot for students to do. And students don't always start a discussion forum knowing how to perform. Like if you say respond to student threads, they'll be like, I liked your response, Lita, right? And they don't know how to give it intellectual punch. And so you're gonna have to guide them and teach them with exemplars. And there's lots of things out there. There's tip sheets for students that you can share about how to perform well, and even gives them a bunch of verbs that they can use to conceptualize what they're doing. Like it's okay to load up a questioning discussion post. You don't have to have a definitive explanatory discussion post, right? In any case, so Monica and I were talking and we thought, well, some weeks, maybe you really just care that they got the content. Maybe you're not gonna be obsessed with whether or not the citations were 100% correct this time, provided that by the end of the quarter, they understand how to do citations. So we thought that some weeks you could do that lecture we described earlier, the video lecture where you say, thank you for your discussion post responses this week. I really thought that several students understood the Rosenberg reading and were able to boil it down to the 3 components. And here's what I saw most frequently in your post, that you thought that Rosenberg argued A, argued B, and argued C, right? So you give this little content-based declaration, but it's all clear that it's coming from their discussions. And then you put a quiz in at the end, and their grade for the discussion that week is the quiz they get, the quiz answers, instead of you writing individual feedback. But then the next week, and you have to tell them this, so you're not springing it on them, and you explain the plan, but then the next week, maybe you look at their 3 discussion posts over 3 weeks. And then you say, I am seeing some development in this area. Hang on. Sorry, I was gesticulating and I unplugged my headphone. improvement in this area, but you still need to work on supporting your statements with examples from the reading, right? And so over the course of the quarter, they'll get an interleaved perspective on whether they're learning the content and how they're doing on showing their learning in the performance of a discussion board thread. And what this can help to do is also teach them, you know, many students might come from a corporate training model of online learning, and they're like, they always want to see their ABCD response, and then they don't have to really do the reading, and they just do ABCD, and then they pass forward, and then they are compliant with a regulations tutorial or something. And so what this can help to teach them is, oh, when I really do my work on the discussion forum, look at my SLO quizzes. I get a better grade on my SLO quizzes. So they can start to learn how the brain works and that academic discourse and assignments make sense and improve their learning. So Monica can walk us through how you might do that.
So you can use, again, there's a lot of tools when it comes to creating the video feedback. You can use Snagit, which is a really quick and easy, I'm just gonna, you know, click my camera, turn it on, and it's gonna record my voice and the screen. You can use Panopto to do that, right? Panopto is integrated in Blackboard, so it'd be a great option to just record it directly in a Panopto, and then you can add the quizzing, right, in one tool. Or you can use, you know, GoReact. That's even another one we'll talk about a little bit in a little bit. But what's nice is you can go ahead and start those tools and then provide the instructor feedback for the discussion board responses, right? Like we were saying, go ahead and pull up the discussion board and kind of go through. Maybe you'll highlight someone's post that was really great. Maybe you've already created a post and you just want to walk them through that. But try to get them so that it sends them back to the discussion board to reflect, right? So you've prepared something that you're going to then share on the discussion board through video, but then the students are going to go back and comment on that somehow, right? After reviewing the lecture, students can then take the Panopto quiz. If you integrate that into the video, then just like Jessica said, you could do an overview, and then their score on the quiz is actually what they get for that week. Not just, did you reply to 2 students and submit the prompt, right? Which is it's a standard way we do discussions, and that is an option. But like Jessica said, mixing it up, right? And then they can aggregate the quiz scores on items that can then be shared with the class, right? So depending on how the students do, you can then even use that as another way to reflect and say, you know, based on the quiz results, this was another kind of aspect that it seemed like everyone agreed on. Or and then a different week, students can receive individual based feedback via the Grade Center, right? So again, mixing this up so that it's not just you delivering the content, right? But also allowing them to deliver the content and do their own self-reflection as well as your own self-reflection, right? And so then taking that even a step further is we can do peer feedback, right? And so taking the onus off of you, like Lori was saying, I feel the same way. I feel almost guilty if I'm not giving, you know, really rich feedback to every one of my students every week. And so, I mean, that's a lot of strain to put on you as a faculty member. So really utilize peers, utilize those groups. The fact that if you've got a large class, provide a rubric and take 1 or 2 groups, you know, off the discussion requirement for that week and rotate them in. Maybe have group leaders, right? So that one person is posting. And have them evaluate the discussion as a whole against a rubric, right? Again, the peer review is great because you can set those expectations of what you're looking for and the feedback that you want them to provide each other, right? So if you provide a prompt or a rubric, then they can actually grade each other's posts, right? And give some feedback. And of course, you don't want to say that they're going to grade each other, right? You can have a score or maybe just an overall Google sheet that they fill out, and then you can go in the back end of the Grade Center and modify and update the actual percentage or score that they got. But it's really nice to be able to have peers evaluate each other and group responses as well, right? So you could even have groups that are presenting and maybe they're creating something on the discussion board that's being shared, and then the groups evaluate each other, right? So again, trying to utilize our students to, one, recognize what it is that we're looking for, right? And if they're grading other students, it might help them in that understanding. So this is also a great scaffolding tool, right? Trying to figure out, is this going to work for all of my students? Are they really understanding what I'm looking for? And the feedback they provide others will also give you an insight into that, right? And so peer feedback is a great tool, and it also, GoReact has an option for this as well. So if it's a video tool and you want video presentations, we can even go a step further and do peer feedback inside of videos.
I just want to report that I was an observer in a classroom yesterday, a Zoom classroom, and I saw breakout groups used for feedback on a presentation. And so what happened was that students in groups had prepared a group presentation, but it wasn't the day to launch it yet. However, one student from, say, group 1 was put into all the rest of the breakout groups and presented the entire presentation casually and informally, and then received feedback. Then they came back to the group as a whole, the breakout groups closed, and the faculty member created a fishbowl. So they had everybody, all the 27 members of the class, muted except for the 5 who'd been in the breakout groups who were group 1, who had received then feedback and questions on their oral presentation. During the fishbowl, only they could talk, and the professor was on the side just kind of nudging their question, nudging them along. And they had a conversation about, what did you hear back from the others that we can incorporate into our oral presentation?
That's great. That's amazing.
So they didn't have to use a new technology.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but anyway, that's just an example. And you could see other ways where you could even do that with written work that was shared ahead of time, or with a video that people had made. There's lots of different ways they could have done that. That could have been a dry run for making a video presentation, right? So it was very immediate, and the reflection piece was right there for everybody to watch happen, so that if the other students might learn how to do that reflection on the feedback better by watching that first group. The first group probably lost a little bit in that exchange. Okay. But that's a way of having formative peer evaluation, both on content and format, where the professor's providing the space and the students are providing the feedback. Okay, so Go React.
So this is my favorite tool. I've been touting this around. Go React is amazing because you can use it to deliver feedback directly to a video, right? So this is a tool where students can create a video, or you can create a video, right? Either way, if you have the students create the video, they can go into Go React. They don't need any software. They can just start their presentation. They can share their screen, so they can have a PowerPoint up and kind of, present over that, or something visual. And what's really great is you can also do group videos. So if you have groups that were supposed to present at the end of the year, right, and kind of do like an overall on their project, you can use Go React to capture those, and they will create the video. And the reason it's in the providing feedback is the best part of Go React is how easy it is to give feedback to students. You can type in, comments, and it timestamps it on the video. And so as a student watches the video, those comments come up right across the video, and they can see at 2 minutes, I did a really great job, and Professor LePage allowed me to, continue using the strategy, things like that. And so it's really nice because it pinpoints the feedback directly to those minutes in the video. And then what I like even more is you can create a video response to their video. I know it's kind of meta, but there's an option in there that says audio, and I can click audio, and it automatically brings up a microphone, and I can do a text comment right inside of Go React. And then I can take it a step further and turn on video inside of Go React, and I can make a video that then the students can watch at the end of their video that is like a summary of how they did and my feedback, right? So what's great about Go React is you don't have to type it all out. It's not a lot of heavy workload, because you're able to just integrate right into the tool the video and the audio feedback to the students. And again, it also works for peer review, because you're able to create almost a virtual discussion board, right? A video discussion board. And so what I did in my class was I opened it up and I made it just a standard assignment. So here was your prompt, please create a video. And then I opened all of the feedback comments so that everyone could see each other's comments and they could see everyone else's videos. So they just went in and they replied to each other. But what I noticed was the amount of replies and the substantiveness of the feedback increased. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because it wasn't something they were typing and they weren't bored. They were a little bit more engaged, but the feedback was amazing. And so it was actually my most successful discussion board that I had throughout the class. And so it's really great because they're able to record their perspective and then share that back with the class.
Monica, you and I may have to meet outside of this, because this is one of my things. I mean, I always use group presentations, and at the end of the class, at the end of the semester, they give their research presentation, and then I give them feedback while we're in class, and the students give them feedback. And I was sort of thinking I'm going to have to abandon this for the online. So maybe you and I can meet. I know you're super busy, but maybe you and I can meet and you can sort of walk me through this Go React, how I can do that.
Please do, Corey. Just shoot me an email. We can jump on a Zoom call. Same with you, Lori. If you have any questions about Go React, definitely email me, because that is something we can definitely go through, and we can make it specific to your assignment, right? There's rubrics in there, and we can add all that good stuff. And then again, just lastly, on top of Go React, there's also a free open educational resource called Powtoon. And so the reason that I like to bring this up is some students don't like to show their face, right? They've got some issues, and they don't want to get into the personal space. You don't know where they are. Maybe they've got, their background, maybe there's a lot of people running around, and so they don't want to have that pressure of having to create this nice video. So they could still do the presentation, but using Powtoon, because it gives you avatars. So you can choose a character, right? To then, and then you can type in text if you don't have the ability to create clear audio, right? Maybe you've got dogs in the background or kids running around. They can do an entire presentation using this tool for free. And then they can take this video and upload it to Go React or to Blackboard even, to then be able to share back. And so again, same video creation tool. It's just something that instead of using the face, you can use a character, and you can build out scenes through this video.
And we can use that too as faculty.
And I think you were talking about this on Monday. These are all in Blackboard, or all part of Blackboard, aren't they?
Everything except for Powtoon. Powtoon is a third-party tool, yeah. But Jessica's going to send the slide deck, and so you can kind of check it out. And if you're interested, again, just go ahead and email me, and we can always set that up together.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've prepared some resources for you. We have sample discussion rubrics. We have our own university rubrics under Blackboard that people have decided they're ready to share. We have a reference guide. And we have a video that Monica prepared on how to add quizzes to Panopto, et cetera, for your student writing. We let you know about the Purdue Owls, where you can find a lot of sheets that give you a common language to talk with students about what was expected of them. And Citation Machine is nice for students to know about, because they can type in ALA, APA, or Chicago and get out a good citation. And there's also an app called GradeProof that comes from Google Suite. And I wanted to add about, just to get you a sense of the power of Go React. Even in its inception, it was designed as a feedback tool. They didn't say, oh, this would be good for feedback. I think one of the founders was an ASL teacher, and he needed a way to do online ASL instruction and provide feedback to signers about how their signing was doing. So I just wanted to sort of plant that seed that, like, this is very powerful, and it's designed for digital education or distance education. And it is designed to be able to freeze frame and say, right there, that's where you need to make a change.
Good to know.
So do you feel like you have your questions answered? Do you want to go back to any of the sort of theories, big theories, or any of the more specific tools or tricks that we mentioned, strategies we mentioned? How are you guys feeling?
Yeah, this was super helpful for me, because again, a lot of the things that I do in class, I thought that I was going to have to abandon, and I was sort of struggling with specifically my theory class for the summer. My God, how do I teach theory to a group of students online? And I have a much better sense of it now. So,
Right.
And Monica, I will be reaching out to you. We'll be spending some time together on Zoom.
Okay, great.
I just have one question. So like at this point in the semester, it would be great for future use to integrate Go React, but I would also like to use it as a way to kind of test it out. But I'm wondering, do you think that, if there's an assignment that's already in the form of having a final paper, do you think Go React is also, if students, when they were in the developmental process of, they've done interviews, and if they're in the developmental process of thinking about their interview material that they gathered, and then instead of having a formal presentation or semi-formal to share with forum group members, they could present their work in progress. do you feel like that would be an easy way for students to get up to speed with using Go React themselves, and also that it would be as productive if it's not, students commenting on, this is what I see that you did here, but students commenting on, well, I'd really like to hear more about X, Y, Z.
I think at this point, if you put yourself in the student's shoes, I think Go React might increase the cognitive load
Uh-huh.
this term, and increase the panic and anxiety this term.
Okay.
But
yeah.
But you could get them ready, and if they're using Zoom with you, first of all, you could give them a few minutes of Zoom time in breakout groups like the other teacher I described, where they could each talk like for a few minutes about their topic and get some feedback from the others. That would be one kind of low, what do they call it, easy on-ramp to peer feedback. You could, any of us, like Monica's recording this Zoom now. So if Monica and I wanted to do a really down and dirty tutorial, she and I could pull up this slide and we could take turns like we did today, record it, edit it down, and that could be our quote unquote presentation. So Zoom lends itself to students as well for a quick way to share a screen and say their piece about the slides and then share it with somebody. So
go ahead. That, Lori, just so we have directions for students on how to use it. And so if you need to, like Jessica said, maybe your option is they have an option to do a video. So it's like, hey, you can do a final paper, but for those of you that have the bandwidth, that are familiar with Go React, that are interested in doing something different, then they could experiment with that as like an option. So then you're not forcing everyone to do a new technology piece, but those that might want a little additional challenge or bored at home, they could try Go React. Because the reason I like Go React is it's all in one place. It's all web hosted. So they don't have to open up Zoom. They don't have, they don't have to do everything. It's just kind of right there in Blackboard, and it records inside of the tool itself.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And just one final question about the breakout rooms. So I've used breakout rooms, but I've never been like just in the breakout rooms in the way that like, can students share they can't share within the breakout room, can they? They can't they can share their screen inside the breakout room?
Yes. Not your screen, their screen.
Their screen. Yeah. Oh, great. I didn't know that. Okay, thank you.
Lori, just an FYI, Zoom just made a security change last week. So no one can share their screen unless you go into your tool settings and turn that on, or you allow one student at a time to kind of just let them share their screens, right? You can do that as well so that you're not turning it on globally, but just know that the setting right now in Zoom is that no one except for the host can share their screen.
Okay. Thank you.
You can make host during a meeting. You can take a participant and make host, and that helps. Or you could, like that group one I described, who went one representative into those students could have been made hosts or could have had enabled screen sharing.
Okay, great. Oh, one other question while we're at it with Zoom, if it's okay if I ask. So, what happened to, there used to be the polling. I mean, I learned about polling, and then when I tried to use it, I was suddenly not able to use it or find it, even though I had set settings for it.
So polling, you will have to be the host in a meeting. So you do want to make sure that you're logged in as you, and that you start the meeting and you're the host. And then you should see the polling option in the bottom. And if it's not there, you said you did go into your settings and make sure that you turned on polling. Yeah, your other option, you might want to try, Lori, if you're using the desktop version, upgrade your software, because sometimes if Zoom doesn't upgrade and you don't upgrade, some features are lost because the upgrade, it changes things. So try to update your software to the newest version, or try to go in and toggle that setting back off, turn off the polling and then turn it back on again. But you definitely should have access. And if you don't, please email me and we'll get to the bottom of that.
And Monica, can I ask a question? And it's because I don't have a class that I'm working in right now. If a faculty member's settings inside the Zoom CSU EB platform are set to polling, will that show up in that permanent Zoom link in their class?
It is supposed to. However, we have multiple cases of that not being the case.
Okay,
So
that
IT
could be
and
it.
Zoom keep telling us that yes, that's exactly how it works. However, I have seen multiple cases that the settings that I set don't transfer into my class settings. And so that's a really good point to bring up, Jessica. I would say, again, it should, but do not rely on that link inside of Blackboard to kind of copycat what you have set up in your Zoom account.
And so what that could mean, that a faculty member trying to hack their way through the rest of the quarter, the semester that way, what they might do is keep that video conferencing section of Blackboard active, but hide the video conference link that was the default that you guys created, and then import their own.
Yes, that's actually exactly what we're suggesting that faculty do.
Okay, that's interesting because in terms of feedback, that's one of the questions I had sort of moving to online. In class, I use iClickers to get my feedback to see, did they get the concept or not? And I'm trying to figure out a way to, I don't know if it's going to be iClickers, or you were talking about the videos on Monday, how you can set questions within the video, if that's a way that I can do it. But it's a way that I can gauge, did I explain this correctly, or do I need to explain it in a different way, that I can get the immediate feedback.
Okay, so just FYI, if you decide to do a synchronous session where you're trying to solicit feedback, you can pull a report of all the polling that you give them. So it will act just like iClicker, where you can pull all the students and how they did on each polling question. The only downside is you must require they register. So if you're trying to do something synchronously in Zoom and get that information, you have to turn on registration. If it's something that you just want to gather information and it's asynchronous, then you could definitely use Poll Everywhere. That's a free tool that integrates into PowerPoint. So if you download the app, you can actually put polling into your PowerPoint slides. So like slide 4 is then the question, and then all that information, you just log into Poll Everywhere and see what every student said.
Okay, you know what, when we have a conversation outside this, we'll spitball that and sort of talk about it. Because I haven't decided, my fear with doing synchronous, and maybe, Lori, you've been doing this for a long time, maybe my fear is that if I do a synchronous, nobody's going to log in. No, nobody's going to be there.
Well, I mean, I'm not.
I'm sorry, I distracted people.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was.
Monica's cracking
I
up.
didn't put you on the spot with it either.
No, but
Yeah.
I just launched a poll too, so I made it distracting. But I just wanted you guys to see that you could actually have a poll you didn't plan if you suddenly feel like you need a poll. If you have somebody else talking for, or you have
Right.
students, if you have students thinking about something and writing something down, you can quickly write a quick poll. So I just made that poll just now.
And just
Yeah.
that was at the polling at the bottom screen, you did that.
Yeah, I just did that. Yep.
And that was the thing that I was saying, that lots of times, well, when I kept thinking I was going to be able to have access to it, when I was actually in my Zoom classes, I couldn't find it. So that was part of the thing. But as far as the synchronous and not, I think that as far as your summer class, if that's contingent, then students will know they have to do that. But yeah, but I guess it might be more challenging. Well, it depends upon if people are able to really get out and about in the summertime, then they really might want to be spreading their wings and maybe not having to be in synchronous.
Right. And, also my thought is, a lot of the students right now are sort of in panic mode, and I want to be compassionate. Maybe they don't have internet access during the summer, or it might be limited, As I make this change, I want to sort of be thinking about all these different aspects of it. It's not as simple as, going into class and sort of pontificating and talking to students, there's other things to consider here, and I want to be effective.
Yeah.
I mean, I think definitely during this first phase of remote teaching, look, we grasped at asynchronous because it seemed like the lowest, like it's like a high touch, so that's great. But in terms of faculty prep, it was like, you already have your PowerPoints. All we're going to do is set you up with Zoom. Now you're ready. You're teaching online. We made a successful navigation and transmigration. Yay! Right? But what it was successful is, I think people are feeling connected to one another, and they're feeling connected to their faculty member, which means they're connected to the campus. that if we had just all of a sudden said, here, read these 5 articles and take these 3 quizzes, you're done, right?
Right.
That would have not fostered a long-term connection and a feeling of community. So it's important, I think, to think intentionally and pedagogically about the use of the synchronous time. I mean, Monica and I could be deploying these webinars, right, remotely, distance remote recorded, and we're not seeing you. But we're having these organic conversations that are leading in important directions, that are answering questions you didn't know you had. So there is something to meeting synchronously that is valuable. So you want to start to parse what that would be for your class. And so content delivery is often not, it's effective, you can do it, but we can do content delivery with our asynchronous recorded lectures, with reading, with watching a documentary or a TED Talk. We can do our content delivery. So then, as you plan your summer classes, what's special that asynchronous recorded lectures can't deliver to your students? Then it's value added for the students. And maybe, like when we do learning communities now, sometimes the faculty and resident sets up 13 learning community meetings so that everybody has a shot at making 10. Right? So maybe you have 6 synchronous meetings, but only are required to go to 3. And then you say, I want us to build community together. I want us to learn what happens when we discuss material collaboratively and how our overall understanding as a group and as individuals is advanced by the free flow of ideas and things like that. So that's how I would put it to you.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Jessica, because I mean, I've been getting that from some of the students saying, you know, I'm fine, I just want to do this on my own, I can do it. And I got some students saying, I miss you, I miss seeing you, I miss talking with you, I miss hearing your thoughts. So it's got to be sort of this balance.
Yeah. So I think as long as you have a plan and an intentionality for any synchronous work you do, I would do that. I think because of bandwidth, oh, we had that equity slide, which didn't show up because it added late. Let me see. Let's see. No, it's fine. Let's just close the share. And maybe if you go to your screen, it'll show up.
Yes, I'll just share really quick.
I just wanted that bandwidth thing will come up, and that'll help you plan too. Like, this is why I want to show it. I think it's a good planning document.
That's great.
So your red and your yellow zones are where you want to be careful. This is only the bandwidth perspective. It's not the only perspective, but it does have to do with equity and accessibility. And then the green and the blue are places where you want, where it's quite easy for students to participate, particularly from a mobile device. And you'll have this to ponder further, but we are in the red zone today, right? Yeah. And we had issues. I lost my bandwidth for 30 seconds. Lori lost it for a minute. We had our issues. And so you can see how if you just go asynchronous, it gets a little bit less high stakes. And if we just go to discussion board with no video, and it's so interesting that we're so excited by all the digital whistles and bells that we can add to our online classes, but some of that early formatting of discussion board with text and image is pretty accessible to our students. It's not the only thing. It doesn't feel high touch. It doesn't feel warm, except if we make it with certain kinds of language choices and certain kinds of images. But it's very equitable, and that's just something to think about. So you want a mix. You want an intentional mix.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this was super helpful. Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting the slides so I can think about it. And Monica, I'll be in touch as I prepare summer.
Great. Sounds perfect.
Okay. It was nice to see everybody.
Yeah, likewise.